Welcome everyone to the Shared Services Committee meeting. This is a special committee formed by Chairman Garrity. It is the first meeting of the Shared Services Committee, and I welcome all the members of the committee and all the supervisors in attendance. I think this is a very appropriate and timely committee to have been established, and I would just note that the folks sitting at the table, Supervisor Wood, Supervisor Dickinson, Supervisor Frazier, Supervisor Simpson, Supervisor Molino, and Supervisor Thomas are members of the committee. And with that, I would like to, before we get fully into the agenda, I would like to invite Supervisor Sieber, if she would, to come to the podium. She has a matter that we tabled at the last board meeting that was referred to Shared Services.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to take what was, in essence, tabled at the last county meeting to come back to this committee, and it seems appropriate as we start to look at shared services throughout our county. Jim Fitzgerald is here today. I would like to speak with you briefly about his efforts with the SPCA. But in 2014, we were headed in a direction to approve a contract, I believe, for $8,000 for the SPCA, and I think what you're going to hear today is that the numbers are very startling. This is an agency that provides services throughout every single town in our county, and one where Jim is working very hard to reestablish the SPCA and to really take a look at the definition of shared services. We have an opportunity to be a model in the state, but we also have an opportunity to right things for our residents and their animals here in Warren County, so I think he can explain it best. And I just wanted to thank you again for being open-minded about this, bringing it to shared services, and really taking a hard look at an opportunity that we have to yet again make another positive difference in our community.
Good.
Hi, thank you for having me. Good morning, Chairman, committee members. I really want to thank you for hearing me out here. I've taken over a bear of a project this year, and Paul's been great. Paul has introduced this to me. Thank you. And what I've done is I've peeled away the layers of what has been going on, and I've heard that the service level was awful, to say the least. And I realize now that why the service levels were where they were. The contract is for $8,000, and I was prepared to sign that. I didn't, and I'll get that out right away, because I wasn't familiar with how the committee operates. This is all new to me. So, in fairness, that's why we're here today. With $8,000, that will probably cover me up till the end of April. Right now, I'm looking at my January bill just for cats, not injured animals, not injured dogs, which is still my responsibility. Also investigating stables, animal cruelty, all that. My bill on our slowest season was $1,745 for January, and that's just cats for Warren County. We've started to address certain things. Town of Queensbury has stepped up and said we're going to pay for cats that, may be injured or we have to trap because of the increase in population. I've also talked to the clerk from Glens Falls about their cat issues. They definitely have some cat issues in Glens Falls. I believe this SPCA takes 100 cats a month out of Glens Falls alone. Right now I'm housing approximately 65 cats just from the month of January. I'm starting to work with North Shore Animal League, 6 different rescues. I've set up an entire different process of how this has worked, and it's a more humane process. We have to test every cat that comes in for leukemia, to, if we can, relocate them into the feral population. This is one of the most difficult things I've taken over, is the feral cat population in Warren County. We estimate that just in Queensbury alone there are 10,000 cats. So, since 2000, this SPCA has paid, just for housing cats, $270,000. From the contract to the county, we've received $171,000. For total expenses for animal care in Warren County since the year 2000, it's been $510,000 on this SPCA. Now, that's not all on the county. You guys have been great trying to work with us, but I don't think you have ever been presented with these numbers or with the fact that we have an epidemic of cats in Warren County. I've pretty much worked in every one of your towns, tried to clean up certain situations, maybe were to be dangerous dog or whatever it is, an animal cruelty case. Last year we had a case in Bolton that's still going on, and I'm trying to get restitution for the SPCA. That case alone cost this SPCA $4,500. That's just one animal cruelty case. That's my obligation in that contract to the county. So I'm up here, and I'd like to ask your permission to approach Bud York and Office of Emergency Services to possibly see if they have vehicles or something we can work together with, an in-kind service, that we're trying to keep the cost down. But if there's old vehicles I could use, that would be great. I'll take anything at this point. And I know that people are going to say, well, I've heard people saying that there's a monster cache of, there's tons of funds in this SPCA. Before I was an animal control officer, I worked at 82 Wall Street for AIG. I had a professional career before I changed after 9/11. I lost half my wedding party in 9/11. So I've dedicated myself to animals and changed my career. I'd really, really like to keep my career going with this and really establish this SPCA as one of the best in the state. Queensbury Animal Control is recognized as one of the #1 units in animal control in the state of New York. I speak for Ag and Markets. I do their local, I teach rookie cops, new animal control officers. Some of your animal control officers I supplied with gear. To say the least, New York State Animal Control is subpar. It's about 100 years behind. We're bringing it into the future now. I'm working on a building that we're going to pay for through those funds. We're not asking for anything for that. I am asking for $20,000 to start with this year, and then to see what we end up with at the end of the year, and we'll all sit down and discuss this going into 2016. But like I said, this year we'll estimated our contractual obligations will cost this SPCA $40,000. I've brought on marketing people to start fundraisers. This is partly what I have to do too for this SPCA. But as far as contractual obligations, if some of you read that contract, it's a pretty hefty contract. I've also brought on 5 new officers to put throughout the county. They are attending the Animal Control Care Association Academy, and then they will be peace officers. They will be attending a peace officer class next month. So we are putting a professional force out there, because a lot of the complaints I'm hearing from residents is they're calling, nobody's coming for 2-3 days. They don't know that this guy is an officer. What is he doing? He's in his jeans and boots jumping out of a pickup. No, that's all over. This is all going to be professional, uniformed people. We're going to be on private property. The residents of Warren County deserve a lot better than what they've been getting. And that's what I'm asking. If there's any questions, I'd love to entertain anything you got. Because if anybody knows animal control, it's me.
Mr. Dickinson.
I have a couple, Jim.
Sure.
You said there's 10,000 cats in Queensbury. Are you referring to all cats or feral cats?
Feral.
That's
We
a lot.
have, I can tell you right now, behind Staples, behind Pizzeria Uno, behind our cemetery, we have cat populations. There's cat hotels. I have 17 different cat women running around Queensbury right now helping me. Because if I bring these cats in and then I have to euthanize some of them, I have activists coming right in front of you telling you that I'm killing all the cats. We're trying to do this the right way. I've got a contact. North Shore Animal League is coming down next week to meet with me to try to help, to see my funding. We're going to bus out these cats out up to their warehouses in Long Island that they have these sanctuaries. I had a cruelty case where I pulled out 160 cats out of a house in Queensbury last year. I can tell you that was a nightmare. But North Shore Animal League stepped up, and they came in and they parked 2 buses over at Glens Falls Animal Hospital, and they load them up. And that costs us nothing. So I'm doing my part to get the groups out there that do this, for volunteer groups, for 501c3s. They're trying to help. I'm looking for rescues. I have overloaded every local rescue that you can imagine with dogs and cats at this point. So, you know, we're at a tipping point here, and I don't think you guys have ever heard this. And that's why I think it's crucial that you hear it now. If I'm gonna run this SPCA, it's gonna be run correctly. And to honor that contract, I really am asking for a little bit of extra funding. And then we can sit down next year, and I'll be honest, if my costs have gone down and we've made this work with 100 different rescues, then we don't have to look into it. But just the numbers are kind of staggering if you look at that compared to contractual obligations. So, is there any other questions?
Did I see your hand, Kevin, Chairman Garrity?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good and needed service, and I'll tell you, we run into incidents with cats, and we have a dog control officer, you know, they don't really wanna get involved. Public health will call, can you have your dog control officer go out and check this cat? Well, they're reluctant, and most of the community officers work other jobs, and it makes it difficult. And if Jim wants to step up and handle some of those situations, it really will be better for every community. And I know he's worked with us on dog issues out there, but the cat issue does crop up from that time to time. And our dog control officer, you know, say, hey, you know, it's kind of a no man's land, and that's why you need a good, strong SPCA, I believe. So I support what he's trying to do.
Mr. Dickinson?
We have an animal control officer in Lake George. I'm not sure how much longer he's gonna be there. It's a nasty job. I don't look forward to trying to fill that position.
Can I address that?
Jim? Go ahead.
What, in the big picture, what I'd like to propose, and it wasn't gonna be now, but I might as well say it, for the smaller towns or for other towns that we are professional animal control officers. That's the crew I'm bringing on. They can enforce municipal code. They all will have their certificates, nationally accredited animal control officers. This is an opportunity for the towns that, if they'd like to contract with this SPCA to handle their animal control issues, I think this is a good time. It also eliminates your workman's comp insurance, and I guarantee I can save you money on what you're spending, because smaller towns could actually even pay per call.
That, Jim, was where I was headed. Question to you is,
Great.
are you 24/7?
24/7,
Where do I
to
sign?
date. Well, I've already been in Lake George twice last week, so. I'd like to approach you individually as town supervisors. I think, would that be the way to approach that, Paul? Like, if Mr. Dickinson said, I would approach each individual supervisor.
I think that we should stay in communication, because what we may need is a phased approach. Some towns, for example, might be further ahead than others, that maybe you don't need to bring in, maybe they come in on down the road. Like, just for example, Jim was, and with the help of the town of Queensbury, it just speaks to the kind of shared services and the assistance that's already being provided in an unofficial way. But Jim and the town of Queensbury were extremely helpful when we shifted responsibilities for our animal control officer, and it included training, certification, equipment, actual equipment that came to Bolton through existing purchasing contracts that were already in place, and then on specific cases, coordination and communication and cooperation. Some of these cases get very complicated very fast, and where you really need to kind of move other people into the line, where, for example, your animal control officer maybe gets into a situation where they need support because this thing's heading, you know, to enforcement. It's heading to probably court, litigation.
Many cases.
You know, and so, but I think this is a great example. I think, and I would compliment Supervisor Sieber for bringing this here, because I think that this is a terrific example of how we can cooperate and share and not only save money, but also provide a better service, better performance. Mr. Dickinson?
Lake George is definitely interested.
Okay.
We presently spend probably just in salary, it costs $8,000.
Okay. And we can,
And we definitely need some service, and we're gonna need it soon. I think this is a great idea.
I'll definitely sit down with you and speak with you, and we'll get that together. I know the tour season is coming up, and that's when we're gonna get.
I think it's important, though, that the county administrator stay plugged in, because
Absolutely.
we're putting together a plan here that we need to, at some point, we're gonna have to submit to other authorities in terms of, what we envision and what we anticipate might be, some efficiencies, in this regard. So it's very important to Paul, the county stay plugged into
Sure.
all of these discussions, whether they take place here, here at the committee, or they take place outside the committee and then they're brought to the committee. I think
Okay.
it's very important that the county stay informed
Sure.
And plugged in on this. Jim?
Yeah, shared services is a good cost-effective way, I think, to handle a lot of this, but, I know like in my neighborhood, there are neighbors that feed feral cats, and when you said 10,000, I thought, I was trying to figure out how many a day you'd have to, how do you actually plan to, I mean, part of the problem, I think, is that people are
Feeding.
feeding them,
What?
which means you gotta deal with people, not cats.
Sure, and that's a big thing that this SPCA had dropped the ball on, is public education.
Euthanize them.
Um,
You can go on the record for that.
but what they call it's herding, and what we do is we tried to herd the cats into one area. You can look behind Staples. There's cat hotels, we call them. What we do is these cat ladies go out and they bring them in. We spay and neuter them, and then we clip their ear to know that that's a Warren County cat and that's a feral cat. I'm trying to work with. You can imagine the phone calls I get in a day, and I'm trying to work with every resident, because you have a resident that will hate the cats and wants to get out his bazooka, and then you have the other resident that will get her bazooka out if you get yours out, because you're going to hurt the cats, and then she's going to protect the cats, and then I'm in the middle of it. I even had somebody from Lake George, a husband, turn in 2 cats, and it was his wives, and she didn't know. So, I mean, I get into more than you even can imagine. But I think that even working with the town of Queensbury, Ron, my whole vision is one phone call for any animal issue. And that's 24/7, eventually 6 officers on call, 4 officers on call on the weekends, and it's going to be a zoned out response. We'll have a northern zone and a southern zone. And I'll be working with your animal control officers currently. I'm not looking to take their jobs away. They would probably be incorporated in with the SPCA because of their awareness of your area and your neighborhood. They could pinpoint a lot of the problems. Chestertown is amazing. Working with Florence, she is, to this date, she's rescued 17 animals since January 1st. And that's a small town. That's Chestertown. You know, Queensbury's, I think we're closing in on the 200 mark of animals brought in. So I just wanted to bring this to light to you guys, what we're trying to deal with.
I think if the committee's so inclined, if we're amenable to the idea of taking the really an archaic contract and adjusting it from $8,000 to $20,000, if the committee's so inclined, the chair will entertain a motion regarding that. But I also would like to say that in order to move this along, if we were to do that, I would hope that we could move right to the full board with it, so that we don't lose another month or so regarding this. But of course, all this is dependent on the pleasure of the committee. This is the committee that it was referred to. It's a tabled item presently before the board. Mr. Dickinson?
I agree, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make that motion, and I have another question for Jim. My interest is to do away with the local animal control officer. And for a number of reasons. And I think the most I think the problem is, and you brought it up when, in your early conversation, is, all the animal control officers that we've ever had in the town of Lake George do exactly what you say. They drive up in a foreign vehicle and they hop out and whatever attire they have on at the time, could be anything from their construction clothes or whatever they wear in the evening, and you know who they are. A lot of times they're after dark, and they're rummaging around in backyards and dealing with
Yeah, you're in the crosshairs in about 30
animals.
seconds.
I know from my surveying experiences that you can have a lot of adventure in somebody's backyard. So I
Read a book.
would be looking forward to that, and I
That
think...
motion, the funding, the additional funding would come from contingency.
Okay.
Mr. Merlino?
No, I'll second that, 'cause you must know Connie from...
Yes, she's great, yeah.
The lady loves animals, and she's wonderful with them, but the part that you explained of going on somebody's property and fighting with one neighbor against another neighbor, and she can't handle that, she's very subdued. So I think this is, will help a lot of towns. So
Great.
I support it,
Right.
I will second it.
Plus, this is an issue, and these animals don't necessarily know where there's a corporate boundary. They move around, and they...
Oh, yeah, they go from North River to...
Right, so
That's
this
it.
is not, specific to any one jurisdiction.
Mm-mm.
This is a much broader, Mr. Merlino, I agree with you. This is a bigger matter than, maybe the board up till now has been, apprised of. And we certainly appreciate, Jim, your being here today and all of your good efforts,
Thank you.
and your candor. And it's great to know that we have somebody, like you, helping to guide us in this regard. So we have a motion by Mr. Dickinson and a second by Mr. Merlino, that the resolution of annual contribution to the SPCA be amended from $8,000 to $20,000 per annum. All other items in the contract would remain as is. All other items, just singularly a financial decision. Any further discussion? And that the money would come from the our contingency account. There being no further discussion, all those in favor of the resolution as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is carried.
Thank you. Thank you. for
Thank
your
you.
attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And Rachel, thank you very much for bringing this forward. This is an important matter, and we do appreciate you and your efforts.
Thank you, I appreciate you guys hearing it.
All righty. I'd like to get right into the agenda now. And turn item 2 over to our county administrator. There's some matters here that I think the supervisors need to be aware of. And Paul, with that, I'll turn the agenda over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning again, everyone. We want to talk about this 1% savings that municipalities are required to achieve by New York State. Before I get into that, though, and maybe just before Jim leaves, to follow up on some comments that were made here and a sense of what I think may be occurring among some supervisors, is that if, and we'll get into the details more later, but Chairman Conover actually hit on something that I think is very important. If there is some desire to try to have some sort of centralized animal control services provided, and it could be provided ultimately through the SPCA or through the town of Queensbury or some combination of things, it will be important that we coordinate that effort so that we can enter into maybe, and it doesn't have to be every town doesn't have to do it, but those towns that want to, we could enter into some intermunicipal agreements whereby we would identify what it is that's being done, what things are being eliminated from your budgets, and be able to show, hopefully, some sort of savings by this consolidated effort. And if we can do that, that will count towards this 1% plan that we have to put together. So, and there's time for that, by the way. We don't have to have all this done this year. We can, in fact, the savings don't have to be shown until the year 2017. So I would just encourage that, you know, if there is a desire among supervisors to do it, that you just don't go off and do it by yourselves, and that's, Jim, that's why I want you to hang around for a moment, because we could lose out on some opportunities here for some centralized services that would benefit everybody, on the governor's, desire to have consolidated services. So that's all I'm suggesting. I mean, you know, towns don't have to do what I just suggested. You can do it on your own, but if we want to try to do some centralized approach, that may involve, for instance, and I don't know what the laws are on this or anything else, it all have to be checked out, but giving up your dog officers, as was mentioned, and having some sort of centralized service, I think there's some real possibilities here and some real savings opportunities if we do it right. That's all. So before Jim got away, I just wanted to mention that.
I just wanna, does he have the approval to go talk about potential surplus cars and stuff?
Well, they're a not-for-profit organization, so if we're gonna give them a car, I guess we'd have to charge them whatever the surplus value of it is, just so you know. I mean, we can't give, we're not, under law, we're not allowed to give away property to a non-profit.
Can you go talk to Bud Anglis?
Sure, sure.
Absolutely. Great, thank you.
Okay. So having said that, the first thing I'd like to do for everybody is walk you through the rules of the game, so to speak, that we have to deal with. And I'd ask Joanne to hand out these booklets to you. Can you just pass them over to Sharon? What I'm handing out is a publication that was put out by the New York State Taxation Department following the governor's and the legislature's enactment of this requirement that we have to save 1%. This came out last year, as you'll see. And I'm not going to go through the whole booklet, but I want to point out some key provisions that would be applicable to the discussions that we're about to have in terms of what services we can share and why we might want to share them. And I think this is really just to give you the baseline, if you will, in terms of what it is we have to achieve, both countywide and individually, or collectively as a group. So the first page I'd like to bring you right to is page 9. And on page 9, you'll see number 2, it says savings requirements. So the first step is, this is what we're required to generate through some sort of a plan, and that is we have to show that we're going to save at least 1% of the levy, our tax levy. And Joanne should have handed out also the tax levies. So what the deal is that we can all do this individually. And in point of fact, the County of Warren, I hadn't really been too worried about this whole thing, quite frankly, because of the sale of the nursing home counts as meeting this obligation. And I know, and if you look on the sheet, our tax levy is $40,600,000. 1% of that tax levy is $400,000. Well, we already know that we're going to lose $1 million this year. So Warren County could, as a county, just so you know, simply write New York State and say, this is our plan. We're going to sell the nursing home. This is what our savings are going to be. It's all pretty straightforward, and Warren County would be in compliance with the requirement that we show a plan, because those savings will be continuous every year. We can show that, and we will be able to show that we'll be able to meet the savings plans that are required for 17, 18, and 19. So that's how simple it is in some ways, and if each individual municipality could do that, it would be, you could each do it on your own. Where it gets a little bit more complicated is if we put everybody together. It gets complicated, but it also could be beneficial if we put everybody together to submit a plan. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more. But just give you an idea, so we got to save 1% of the tax levies. If we were all to join together, you'd see the total on that sheet Joanne handed out for the municipalities is $61 million. Well, then we'd have to save 1% of $61 million. We'd have to have some sort of a plan or plans, multiple plans, that save 1% of the $61 million, which of course would be roughly, what, $610,000. And if we add the districts in, that's another $2 million, $3 million, so you'd be up to needing about, what, higher than that. $12 million, sorry. So total levy is 73, so we'd have to come up with 730,000 roughly of savings. And that's if everybody was in one plan together. next item is right below that I'd like to bring to your attention is, where it says, right underneath calculated savings, it says local governments. And it says, to calculate the savings requirement for a local government efficiency plan, add the levies for the local fiscal years beginning 2014. So these are 2014 numbers, just so that we don't have any confusion, because we've had a 2015 levy, of course, but they require us to use the 2014 levies. And then you'll see here that you either do, if you're doing it on your own, it would just be your levy, but if you're doing it with more than one government, you join the levies of all local governments that are participating in the plan. And then it emphasizes again, it's important to note that the savings requirement is 1% of the tax levy. And that's not revenues or expenditures, but tax levy. Going to page 10, down at the very bottom, and over onto the top of page 12, or I'm sorry, bottom of page 11, bottom of page 10 to the top of page 11, you'll see that, this is what I already mentioned, but that the savings requirements that we have to show is that we will have savings in 17, 18, and 19 when our plan is implemented. Now, the good news about this then is that all we need to do this year is tell them what our plan is. We don't have to have the intermunicipal agreements done. We don't have to have all of the work done, so to speak, to be able to submit the plan. All we need to do is to say, this is our plan. And as long as we can show some sort of a plan that saves 1% in 17, 18, or is expected to in 17, 18, and 19, then we've got it nailed for this year.
Now, Paul, just for clarity, is the 1% savings is based on the 2014 levy?
Correct.
What happens in succeeding years?
It's always based on the 2014 levy. So, in other
if,
words...
let's just take an example. Gasoline goes through the roof. So, a town A that has saved $15,000 doing an animal control contract, but now petroleum goes through the roof, and their cost of petroleum goes up $15,000.
That's not a problem. And the reason it's not a problem is because your plan was the animal control plan, and let's say that your budget was $150,000. Let's say your tax, just to give simple numbers, let's say your tax levy was $150,000, so that you only needed to raise 15,000, or not even, no, 1.5 million, so you'd only need to do 15,000. And let's say your animal control officer does that. Now, let's say your tax levies increase, though, in the future. As long as you stay within the tax cap, there's no problem, because it's based on what your plan was and what the 2014 levy was. So even if your costs go up in future years, you're not going to be harmed. And in point of fact, they anticipate that your tax levies will continue to rise, and you don't have to actually lower your tax levy. What you have to do is show a savings. Now, you can use the savings to offset your tax levy if that's your choice in your town, or you could use the savings to do another service if you wanted. So they're not compelling you to lower the tax levy.
I just wanted everyone to understand that's a very important point, and you'll see how important it is as we go forward. Because the plan, it really is to find the 2014 savings.
Right.
Period.
Right.
Period. Now, if we can do more than that, all the better. If the plan goes beyond that...
Totally retarded.
You know, I know, but if the plan goes beyond that, we will, of course, benefit from that, and we should strive for that. But at a minimum, in terms of what the state requires, this was the point that I was making.
Now, if we do it, the very next point is where it says it's important to note that the savings requirement is or is plan-wide, or I said county-wide. If we choose to do a county submission for the plan, you'll see by looking at the chart, we could include all different types of plans. In other words, all the plans that we submit don't require that every single municipality in the county participate, but we can submit different plans. So, as you see, like Town A in the middle here where it says Town A and Town C continue to share tax collection services. So then there's a savings, and that gets all added up at the very end. So while they're looking for, and this is where it gets really kind of interesting, because I've talked to the state about this, is that the general theory is they're really looking for some, if you're gonna do a countywide plan, for instance, they're looking for really something that will be countywide savings, and all municipalities, say, participating, and I have an idea which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. But if town A doesn't achieve the 1%, but the whole plan achieves the 1%, you're still okay. And so I asked the question because it's kind of, and it's a little murky here, because I said, well, if Warren County is going to achieve it with a nursing home, and they all sign on with our plan, then doesn't that take care of it for all the towns, right? And they said, no, that's not what's intended. What's intended is that while you can have some flexibility to add numbers up that may be 3 or 4 towns and add them into your plan, you just simply can't say, well, the sale of the nursing home blanketly covers everybody else. So the plan that they want is either a uniform, countywide, every municipality, every district involved, or multiple plans that add up. But you just can't say, well, one entity achieved it, so nobody else has to do anything.
I think we're spending some time going over the state requirements, just so everyone understands the state requirements. But I think the chairman's goal in establishing this committee, and the opportunities that it presents go far beyond that. We heard one thing this morning, right off the bat. I mean, this is $500,000 worth of services being provided by the SPCA that benefits all of us. And I think as we go forward, what we're going to find is that there are some things in motion, perhaps between municipalities that represent that savings, perhaps sharing assessors, that sort of thing. That all should be brought to the fore, not only in terms of the state plan, what's required for the submittal of the plan to the state, but also going forward in terms of achieving greater economies and efficiencies. Jim?
Yeah, I get the point. The basic idea is shared services. But what if you switch to solar energy for your electrical things and it reduces it, say 1%? Would that count? Or
I believe it would, because that's an efficiency. So I believe it would.
As long as you're reducing.
Right. And then that is the next item on this that I wanted to point out to you is on page 11, the bottom, going over on page 12, it actually tells you there what types of things would be eligible. Cooperation agreements, as we've been discussing, such as animal control cooperation agreements.
Just a stop on that for a moment, just for the record and for Paul going forward. Each year we enter into a snow and ice contract with the towns. I'm going to reverse it now. Instead of coming up to the county, going down to the towns. And the county does that because it's more efficient to be dealing with our roads, our county infrastructure, by contracting with 150 miles or so with individual towns. And it would seem to me that that's an excellent vehicle going forward because those numbers change. So then the question becomes, going forward on an existing contract that's a changing situation, because it's possible that that could be calculated into the savings as well, because if we had to take those roads back, we would have to have new highway barns, we would have to have the equipment and the manpower and the supply to be able to deal with all of that.
I think that with the highways, it's a little bit problematic for a couple of reasons. One is, we'll talk about this momentarily, but these contracts have been in effect before 2012. The second thing is that we've actually increased the amounts we've paid over the past year. I think that, it's going to be, while you're correct that there is an overall savings, I don't know if that'll work under this format that the state has given us. I mean, we can certainly look into it. I'm not saying it absolutely won't work, because I haven't really explored that fully, but my inclination was initially not to aggressively pursue that approach unless we really have to.
All right. I'm sorry, Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question. Is it, we did solar in, I think it was 2013. Does that qualify, or is that
Yes.
out of?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's after
2012?
2012, as long as it was entered into after 2012. And then on this page, this is what you'll see, that there's, on page 12, you see shared services or functional, that thing we've been talking about. But dropping down to the point that a couple people have already made, efficiencies are actions taken by local governments or school districts to improve completion of existing processes or functions, or the delivery of services that result in lower cost. So that would be where that solar power would fall under that. And then right down here, under the topic of past activities, eligible past efficiencies, shared services or reforms, include only those implemented since the local government became subject to the tax cap. For local governments, this is the first day of the fiscal year beginning in 2012, January 1st for most counties, most cities and fire districts. Other local governments with calendar fiscal year of June 1st for most villages. So there's your criteria right there in terms of that. And then down at the bottom of 12, it talks a little bit more about, and over onto the top of 13, about these past efficiencies. So certainly, if you've done them in the past, we can certainly explore those and see if they'll be eligible to be included.
Chairman Garrity?
Yeah, I think he answered, Paul answered my question.
Okay.
Fred
Just,
and I are golden, right, Fred?
when they,
So, you're just talking about the shared assessor?
Yes.
Yeah, because we had one agreement with, Horicon, and then that terminated, we had a new agreement with
We have a new
Warren.
agreement,
So I think that would count, and also for Chester, we did the solar in 2012, so that saves $5,000 or $6,000 a year, so.
did you, note those on your survey form, Fred? Or if you haven't submitted the survey form, but Paul sent you, complete that and get that to us and note those items that are on there, your assessor and those items, so we have, because we're preparing a list of,
When did he send it out?
It went out a week ago, what's today? Today's Wednesday? A week ago this past Monday, so a week and a half ago.
they're supposed to be back
No,
by.
did
Friday.
you email them out? Or-
Yes.
They're last
Oh,
Friday?
boy.
They're last Friday? Was it last Friday?
It was,
It was supposed to be back last Friday.
And I saw the date, and I said, well,
Yeah, you and Fred are out.
failed.
There's so many of those other emails coming.
Yeah, I must have inadvertently blocked out the county when I
I
was
just-
doing my.
I have a question, when it says the term lower cost, is the term lower cost, does that include, doing something that results in less of an increase?
No.
No.
You have to show a savings.
So that's a very important point here, that when they say lower cost, they mean savings,
Well, the,
not an avoided cost.
Lake George and Lake George Town and Village have, we've combined the town of Lake George has dissolved its sewer department. It's been absorbed by the village. We saved $70,000 the first year we did that. We've also signed up for solar power. They're constructing our solar units as we speak.
You have
I didn't
is
get
that a
that.
district, that's saving that money?
Yes.
Because I think you've gotta add your district and your town together. I'd have to double check that. There's some special rules on districts that
But
you
you
have
also
to be
missed
sensitive to.
our Diamond Point Water District. Is
That's
that-
important, Dennis, if you haven't completed that survey, that be,
I must have blocked the county.
have
out.
your, yeah, it's important that be completed in as much detail as you can provide, for us.
When I return to the office this afternoon, I'll
Thank you.
scrounge
Mr.
around
Brock?
and dig that up and,
Okay. We can send it to you again if you'd like to.
I'm sure it's there.
I have a kind of technical question. The city,
Really?
the city basically sold the Civic Center, but it isn't sold until, does the whole agreement count, or just the operation part?
It's a lease with an option to purchase agreement, so it's a pure lease agreement right at this point.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We'd have to really study that.
Purchase.
No, it's not, it's a lease with an option to purchase.
Is there, can you show some sort of a savings to the city as a result of the lease? You may be able to use that. You know, that's similar to like, the county selling the nursing home, so I would think that you should be able to use that.
Yeah, we should check on that, though, we'll check it, but I think a call should be made on that. I know Mayor Diamond wanted to be here, and Mayor Blaze as well asked to be invited, and I'm sure they'll be participating as well, so. Fred, did you have your, were you, okay. No.
The next step I just like to bring you to is to, page 14. On page 14 where it says multiple local governments, And this is where it talks about the certifications. And I just want to point out to you that this is the part that, will require the chief executive officer or budget officer of each local government to certify that they'll undertake their best efforts to implement it. It will also require the chief financial officer, you'll see, of each local government to certify a couple of things: that it will result in savings, and that full implementation of the agreements will result in savings over the aggregate tax levies. Here again, it says for 2014, and that the savings will occur in 2014, or 17, 18, and 19. So there's some important certifications that will need to be made, and that's one of the reasons I asked Mike Swan to be here today, because he's going to be on the hook for one of those certifications. But locally, you will have the same type of certifications that you have to provide as well. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. On page 15, it tells you for local government officers, the chief financial officer could include, so depending upon how your municipality is set up, in most towns it's probably the town supervisor. The city, I'm not sure if the city has a controller or not, but it could be the city controller or city treasurer. And then special districts, it could be the person identified by a resolution. But just so you know about the certifications. The last page I want to bring to your attention is page 16. And that is the submission timetable for all of this. And that is that if we're going to do a multiple plan, then everybody that's participating should be delivering those plans to Warren County no later than May 15th with their certifications. The chief financial officer for the lead entity, which would be Mike Swan, would have to then to submit the documents to the New York State Director of Budget no later than June 1st, 2015. And then it shows the documents that he would have to list, and one of the things he has to do is show an analysis of the savings to be achieved. So there's a little bit of work to be accomplished, which is, although the analysis of the savings, just so you know, I don't think that's going to be terribly difficult, because obviously whatever plans we put together, we would have been preparing that along the way, so we know whether or not we're achieving that. So, as the chairman mentioned, then this is all of the technical stuff, if you will, that we have to meet that the state wants. The irony here is that we would want to do shared services anyway, and in fact we talked about it today with regard to animal control. So while we have to meet these obligations, I think there are some opportunities for the municipalities to enter into shared savings or shared services that will result in savings in any event. But before we even get into that, I would say this, that I think an underlying decision that each municipality needs to make: do you want to join with the county or not? Do you want to do this on your own? If your municipality is certain that you're going to have savings and you've got the districts covered and you've got your municipality covered, you could feel very comfortable doing it on your own and making the submission. If you don't, or if you don't feel you're able to achieve it, that would be a good reason to go through the county. Now, I can tell you that the state would love to see plans come through the county, because they've got to review all these plans. And it'll be a lot easier on them to have groups going. The other thing is, I will say, there is a certain logic, as you saw today, on such things as animal control, for the county taking the lead on such a shared service, because the county could coordinate that with the SPCA and arrange to take over that type of service. The other aspect that I had really looked hard at and wanted to talk to you about today a little bit is to see what your interest would be, and that is purchasing. When I was reviewing this, one of the things I've been racking my brain ever since they came out with this is, what could we do as a county, a county-wide service that would achieve savings? And the purchasing initiative is what came to mind, and I didn't know it at the time, truthfully, but I found out that Onondaga County has actually done that. They've centralized their purchasing, and to my knowledge, they're the only one in the state that has done that. And it's been very, very successful. They achieve savings not only in the administration of their purchasing by not needing as many workers and staff, but they've also been able to achieve savings by virtue of the fact that when they put out a bid or are looking for some sort of commodity, they're able to assure the seller that they've got X number that they're going to need. Now, you may say, well, geez, we're already kind of doing that in Warren County. We already piggyback on the county bids. And while that helps, When you really think about it, though, what are we saying to the bidder? We're saying to the bidder, for instance, Warren County needs 3 trucks, and maybe some other municipalities may buy something from you, but we're not guaranteeing that. That'd be far different than to say, we are all in agreement that we need 10 trucks, and we're going to market and we're buying 10 trucks, or we're going to market and buying X amount of salt, or we're going to market and buying X number of this supply. If we're able to do that, we'll be able to, we think, get better pricing for everybody. Onondaga County claims that they have had a big success story. My thought is that if there was an interest on the part of towns, it would require obviously some changes on the part of towns. It would require you giving up some of your purchasing responsibilities and authority perhaps, because you'd have to follow a model policy. You'd have to do all your purchasing through the county. But the advantages are you'd have professional purchaser doing the work, and if the plan works, you'll achieve the savings, and the county will achieve savings as well. If you were interested in pursuing that, I would bring a representative of Onondaga County in and Julie in for a further meeting with the committee. And I wanted to jump right to that because I really think that that's going to provide, if we had that, if we were able to do that, and actually I really think this animal control thing would have some traction as well. I would think if we did those 2 things, we could involve everybody and put together a plan, and then add in the other things that we talked about today as well, and do a multiple submission by the county to the state, if the towns were so inclined. As I stressed in the beginning, you don't have to do this. You can do it on your own if you feel more comfortable doing that. But this was an idea that I came up with, and I do have one other thing I guess I should hand out real quick, is I do have the results of the survey. We didn't get a lot of responses, but we did get some, and I wanted to just give those to everybody.
I would ask,
I have a question.
Mr. Chairman Garrity?
Yeah, real quick, Paul, is there a specific form we're supposed to use? Are they providing a form?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. To date, there is no official form that the state has generated. They are telling us there will be an electronic online portal by which the submission will be made, but that has yet not been put out.
Already this year, you know.
Pardon?
We had to make out a form and send it in, said we would do this already. It was on the portal. I'm just talking about.
Well, you're talking about the tax cap you've already been doing every year, but there's no portal yet for the 1% savings.
So it's a free-for-all then?
Well, no, there are, basically there's no form, but there's certain criteria that we already know that you would want. For instance, you're going to want a description of your plant. You're going to want what type it is.
But there's nothing there.
No, we got to do this ourselves, but it's not going to be terribly long. It'll be the type of thing you're doing. Is it cooperative? Is it efficiency? What is it? A description of the plan, the participants of the plan, the amount of the savings that you're going to generate in 17, 18, and 19. I mean, it's not, I don't think it's going to be overly complex in terms of what we have to submit. I would be putting together what we think we're going to need, and then when the portal opens, then we go in and hopefully have what we need to submit. But, you know.
I'd be interested in hearing on the purchasing. Fred, if you could comment on that. You've been doing this a little longer than some of us. I
think it's a great idea. I mean, purchasing has been one thing that's given me headaches. And I think there can be savings if you're doing it on a broader scale. One of the problems I've always had is trying to come up with specifications for things I know not that much about, like, you know, a biomass boiler, solar, we're buying a new ski tow. I mean, I would love to have the help of professional, you know, purchasing people to do those sort of things, in addition to pooling all of our resources. Another huge one, I think, and I don't know what the obstacles are under state law, but is health insurance. That, you know, the county is able to achieve more savings on health insurance than the individual towns are when they struggle every year to try to deal with the huge increases and the changes in the plans. I don't know if that can be included because of, you know, state law restrictions.
Yeah, there are some state law restrictions, but the other thing that, at least from what I have heard in the past, the one problem behind it is the county usually loses out on that deal when all the consolidation occurs. One county went ahead and did it, and they elected to do it because they really wanted to help out the towns. But, so I don't know how that would all come out in terms of an overall savings.
Well, we're different rated.
Is when we went in on the solid waste contracts, and all the towns submitted, that was an initiative here done at the county, but all of the towns, I know for our rates, they were much better because we had the large number. We were able to get a better rate for tonnages and for recycles than I was able to get, just on my own with just the little town of Thurman. So I could see where purchasing would be extremely beneficial in certain aspects if we could, group all of our purchases in together on certain items. I can't see how we wouldn't see it.
I would agree,
We are already doing it on solid waste to bid out the recyclables and the municipal.
That's what Evelyn's saying. I would imagine that, if you were to take, total purchases, that there must be some factor that we feel we can achieve in terms of saving. And on total purchases, that would be a very large number. I mean, it'd be more than the levy, because the levy just represents how much is being collected in property taxes. So when you add in all revenue sources, and then you look at all of our purchasing, it's a very, very large part, whether it be propane or oil or whatever.
Diesel fuel, I'm thinking of road salt, we should be able to see significant savings on some of those more common items alone.
Mr. Dickinson?
Well, I'd like to make a motion that, Paul, put together some of that stuff and invite somebody out and give us a what for and why not. I'd be interested in seeing a list of potential items on there that would be of the savings.
Mr. Lee?
I'm all for all this because, we do struggle. But the one instance is sometimes you can't, because like last season, I tried to change over propane because there were places offering cheaper propane. But when I built my new town hall 5 years ago, we bought 6 huge tanks and buried them. Well, what happened was, now I gotta buy it from that propane company, or the next one wants me to take them up out of the ground and put theirs, and, it was like a $20,000 bill, so, just to save a little, I had to spend 20, and I just didn't have the 20 to save, and stay with the one that you had. So, there are a couple of little problems that will, be created by this. And I got one other thing, I'm not trying to be sarcastic or anything else, or make a joke out of it, but when you come to, there's towns like Bolton and Hay and Lake George, they leave money in is this, levy of what the town gets now after what they leave in from some of the sales tax revenue? Or is this a levy before they leave money into the county for their sales tax revenue?
This is the town levy. This is the town levy.
It's the actual
Eh,
levy.
Actually, town
The
levy.
actual town
So
levy.
when they leave, their levy is less than that to the county because they leave money in there now.
That would lower the county levy.
But the levy is still, we
It's
still have to
still-
raise X number of dollars. What's happening is that some of the towns are just leaving some money here to lessen the burden that they have, but it's still the total levy.
Jim?
Yeah, Ed may remember this, I talked to him a couple of years ago about, computer services, like the city uses Munis, and I don't know what you use, World, something or other up here. If we had, when it comes to buying, a new system, the software company looks at us and says, well, we'll sell it to you for profit, and then they come up here and we'll sell it to the county at a profit. Where if we had one large system, we could, get a lower overall cost, plus the computer people up here could maintain the whole system. I think it's just, it makes sense, and I don't,
Well, the county made or wrote, whatever you wanna call it, a tax collection software for my office to save us a tremendous amount of money. And my end goal with that was to offer that out to the towns, to see if they wanted to join onto that program, to save them the cost of their own individual maintenance on whatever systems they were on. And in the long run, that would make it easier for everybody, because then we would have one system that would be live, and if somebody makes a payment in Bolton, we're gonna know about it the next day and can report it.
well, we also were looking at the police, the police have our type of system, and then the county sheriff has it same or different, and we started to blend them. You know, I can't remember the exact part of the history, but a lot of times what happens is one department says, I like ours better than this one, and then based on a few minor things really, you end up having the tail begins to wag the dog, I think, where you need a little fiscal discipline where somebody says, well, you're gonna have to live with the whole thing, you know, it can't, nothing's perfect just because you love this versus that. And, I think that's what you could save huge amounts of money, I think, by having a integrated police system, integrated, you know, computer-wise, same with purchasing and.
I think this is going to, the way this will, I think we're gonna get out of this what we put into it.
Right.
And I think that I've heard some ideas, in the last few weeks that, frankly, I had never contemplated, I never thought about, including lab services and all kinds of suggestions. And I think, but I think the broader plan beyond the state requirement is, that's gonna take some time. I mean, I think there's a June 1 date that we need to get to for our municipalities, if with purchasing and a few things that we know are on deck that are gonna get us there fairly quickly, there's that. But I think that what the chairman was looking for in this committee was beyond that, and up into and including maybe special districts, even water and sewer districts, which are not on the list here, but a lot of the smaller towns, we have issues with sewer and water districts, some of them civil service, some of them cross-training, some of it dealing more with efficiencies necessarily than cost savings, but it could also include cost saving. I think all of these items should be put on the list. We can cull the list, prioritize the list, and move on these things accordingly. So I would almost envision, I don't know if you agree, Paul, that we would have, there'd be a bit of triage going on here. Initially, get us in a position where we feel good about our June 1 submittal, but keep going with some of the more complicated, let's say, or the more sophisticated issues that are out there that that might take a little more time to deal with.
And just to add to that, I think there's some things we miss out on because nobody wants to tread in somebody else's backyard. You know, I mean, there are certain things that I think are county responsibility that each town takes on their own now, and I think this will be a great opportunity for us to drop the barriers and say, this makes more sense to do it this way. I mean, you talk about tax collection, I'm not sure, you know, if people wanna lose that home, they wanna go in and talk to that collector or something, but there are other things that each town has a person in that position right now, that I think it's time that we look at and say, you know, this needs to be a countywide.
I'm just talking about a software package, everybody on the same software package.
Yeah, that would be great.
I mean, I'm not talking about changing the collection done in the towns.
Well, I'm not even talking about that one, but I'm just saying, you know, we all know there's a service that each one of us provide through our town government that I think could be done through the county. But, you know, it's always been, you know, home rule.
Well, one of the things, I mean, it's a minor thing, but, you know, minor things can lead to more major things, but even, I think our budget office is going to be looking at the county budget. It was a discussion that came up at Real Property, and it was the outgrowth of Real Property that we have items that where the county's billing back to the towns for really very modest amounts of dollars, but by the time you add in all the administrative costs with doing that, why are we doing that? And on top of that, those costs that are billed by the state aren't billed based on an assessed value basis, a proportional basis. What a smaller town might be paying for that real property might be very close to what a larger town might be paying for that. So those kinds of costs, it would seem to me, that deal with the real property system should, you know, we should think that through. And even if it doesn't result in savings, it results in a fair application of that responsibility to the towns, and it avoids an administrative cost. I mean, just think, every town's gonna now have to process that payment. Now, that may not seem like a major item, but take that times however many items like that we deal with over the course of a year, it starts to becomes, you know, pretty serious administrative costs. So, Jim?
Yeah, like what Mike was talking about, with those, if you have the support services all uniform, then like for example, building a code, say your guy is out on vacation, if somebody from the town from the county came down for a special, you know, something to fill in, or, you know, we had in order to avoid overtime or whatever, I'm just sort of making this up. By having everything uniform, then that person could step in and still know what was going on. Or, you know, almost any of these things, by having a uniform support, you know, countywide, then we could support each other and maybe not even eliminate departments, but we could cut down on overtime by having people come in temporarily, you know, and work things out. Just, yeah, because there's sort of a, this is my department, I don't want to lose it type of thing. But if you cut down just the cost of overtime, that would, you know, there are still costs by having something uniform throughout the county.
I think although perhaps the state's not always aware of this, there's a lot of sharing and cooperation that has gone on amongst the municipalities in the county for a very long period of time. There's a lot that's in process right now. Lake George, for example, just identified between the town and the village a dozen items that they're cooperating on. Horicon and Bolton are cooperating on some. I mean, if you were to go around the county, you would see Chester and Warrensburg just entered into a cooperative arrangement relative to assessment. And I think that, you know, those that are online with the cutoff date, those will be tabulated and quantified. And then I think as we look down the road, and I think this is where Chairman Garrity is hoping, is that perhaps some of the out-of-the-box kind of issues that presently are being handled on a town-by-town basis, maybe we need to think about maybe handling that a little differently. And that's going to take time, and that's going to take some discussion, because there's history and culture, and there's a lot to go through there. But I think that in the end, I think if we approach this in the right way, we keep surveying. The only other comment I make is that this committee's, we're probably not going to be able to do this in this time frame, meeting once a month. So if you get invitations to committee meetings that are more than once a month, you can blame the chairman. But we're going to need to do what we need to do to get. I didn't specify which one. You can see that we have dates absolute that we have to meet, and we're just going to have to meet and work to meet those dates.
Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to recommend is this, that following on that is that we try to set up a committee meeting within the next 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks out, whatever it takes to get everything ready for Onondaga County to come out and Julie to get everything together, if the committee's interested in pursuing that. Also, at that same meeting, I think we ought to pursue the animal control, because I think that could very well yield to savings. I think if we look at those two, and then I think that the other thing we need to know in preparation for that meeting would be a couple of things from the towns. Who's in and who's out? We need to know that. And that could be, you don't have to say that today, but whoever's in, I guess we need to know that, you know, within a few days. If you want to be a part of a county-wide plan being submitted, we need to know that. The second thing is, and then we'll work with just those folks at that point who want to be in. But we really need to get that pretty well identified, I would say, you know, certainly within the week. The second thing I would like is that any towns that are aware, that want to be in, and are aware of any current efficiencies, plans, whatever that you're doing, cooperative agreements that have occurred since 2012, we would need the type that you're involved in, who the players are, what the description of what's happening is generally, like if you're sharing, sewer district workers or something like that, where you used to pay 2 people, now you're only paying 1 or something. And then, what the savings are and whether or not they're projected to continue in 17, 18, and 19. And now this would be for anything that you've done after 12. We also could use anything that you would want to do. Like say you're planning on doing something with another municipality, but it hasn't yet been agreed to, that's fine. Because all we're required, I got to stress this again, all we're required to have ready by June 1st is what the plan is. You have until 2017 to get all the intermunicipal agreements done, get it all in place. So we have a lot of time to get all the details worked out. We just need to say, hey, you know what? We're on this purchasing thing. We like this. And then the professionals will figure out whether or not there's a savings with Julie and Onondaga, who I think we can use as a reference point, Mike Swan's office, get them to ascertain whether or not what the savings will be. And we just need enough information to know that, okay, that's reasonable. And then, as our plan, to put it in. Remember, the certifications will be, yeah, we're buying into this. We'll do what we have to do to make this work. We'll sign and negotiate future intermunicipal agreements, et cetera. So, I guess within the week then, towns or any municipality in Warren County, villages, city, are you in or are you out? If my office could be emailed, then I'll send out a follow-up email too, just asking that question. And I think what I'll do is send out separate emails so it's very easy. One email you'll get from me is, are you in or are you out, basically. The second email is, please advise of any of these other plans that may be going on now since 2012 or that you're planning on implementing in the near future or you'd like to implement that we can include in the plan. And I'll itemize what I need from you in that regard. And then we'll go ahead and, like say, arrange for the animal control and the purchasing presentations at the next meeting if that plan works for the committee.
What's the pleasure of the committee, Dennis?
I made a motion earlier, I'll restate it. I think we should proceed. I'd like to hear from Onondaga County, and flush out whatever other information we can get.
Do we have a second to that? Supervisor Simpson. Further discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Secondly, I have a shared services meeting this afternoon with the village. Paul, have you included the village?
I have. They were invited to this meeting. I sent an email to Mayor Blaze and also to Mayor Diamond.
So I assume he's up to speed on it.
I think Dave's Harrington is out, is he out sick? I thought I heard from
there's
he had the flu or something, but, no, I mentioned it to Dave that, mentioned to the
that may very well be the answer to that. We do have that meeting. I'm very interested. I want to check with the mayor and see exactly where he is. Between the town and the village, we've done a ton of shared services, all kinds of stuff. So I will find that survey and get it back to you, and I will get back to you with the results of our meeting this afternoon.
Now, I see here we have, like the lighting district, for example, that would come under my, come under the county savings. The fire districts, how are we going to incorporate fire districts as well, or is that?
I think the purchasing plan could include everybody. And that's what I liked about it, because we could put everybody under that envelope.
Maybe, Kevin?
But,
The question.
there's potential there for that.
There
I
is
have some ideas already.
You do, all right. So, could we, we should communicate what we're doing. As everyone agreed, we should at least send a letter communicating to them what we're doing.
When you say to them,
To the fire districts, I think, that
Okay,
we should send some kind of communication out. Perhaps we could even send them the survey, if we're going to, I don't know that.
I don't know that the survey would be of much use with them, but we could send them the question of what shared services that they're either currently doing or would like to do going forward. That would probably give us a better idea. But now I will tell you this, there are districts and there are districts. There are districts such as in Queensbury, the Fire Protection District, which is not run by a board or anything else. It's simply the town supervisor is, or the board actually runs that district themselves. So there's not a separate district there. And so some of these districts, there's nobody to communicate with, basically. And we're not gonna be communicating directly with volunteer, nonprofit fire companies. It would be at the district level, which many times is the board itself, the town boards that are running the district. So, we'll have to sort out that, because that gets a little confusing in Warren County.
Maybe, using Brian's services or
That might be, yeah.
would be the way to go.
I recommend going to a fire advisory board perhaps. They have a good communication rapport with the different.
Okay.
I got the one other question, back in Lake Luzerne, we already share it with Hadley, Saratoga County. Can we cross the border?
I don't know the answer to that.
Say the same with our EMS, we do that together with them, and have an EMS squad that takes care of both towns, and the fire department takes care of both towns. But it's getting to be expensive.
Countywide EMS.
Mr. Chairman?
Well, there's a good one. You just hit on a good one we've been talking about, countywide EMS.
Right,
That's an issue for everybody.
all right.
Now, the only other thing I would mention maybe on the purchasing initiative, since Ed is here, the town of Queensbury is not here. I should probably call John Stroud and talk to him about it, but, you know, part of the purchasing plan would be to envision that, much like when we did the 911 dispatch consolidation, that staff would be able to be, cut back or eliminated in the municipalities that have purchasing people. Some of those people may be able to be absorbed in the county, because Julie can't do this all by herself, but what we gotta be able to show is that there's a net savings whenever it's all said and done. But so I do think that, I know some of those larger towns do have, and the city, I would imagine, have purchasing people, so that is something that will have to be explored. Any towns that have a purchasing component, say if you've got somebody who does 50% of their time is in purchasing and that can be eliminated, then, you know, you may be able to go down to a half-time position instead of a full-time position, and that will be part of the savings that we would be looking to show. So it's not only the savings from the purchasing ability to buy in bulk, but it's also the savings on the staffing side, that we consolidate into the county.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I've got a question, I guess, that if there's, in order to achieve ongoing savings, there's a project that involves capital costs. I assume you have to take the annual financing cost for that capital cost and deduct it from the savings. What I was thinking of specifically is our situation with the biomass, because it looks like we can save about 45% on the fuel cost, but there's a big, you know, capital cost, and depending on how long we can finance it, there could be net savings or net cost for some amount of time, depending on how long the finance.
Debt savings overall are not allowed, as a general rule. Debt savings are not allowed. Refinancing or any kind of debt savings are generally not allowed under the plan. Whether your particular project would qualify in some other aspect, we could take a look at.
I'm not talking about debt savings, I'm just talking about whether there's net savings after.
Oh, net, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could.
You gotta look at the net. I mean, like we're doing the biomass, we'll save about 45% on fuel, but we're gonna have some debt service.
Right.
The capital cost, so we can get there.
Yeah, we'd have to work on that and take a look at it to see.
I would think the mega program would qualify for this also.
I guess the concern from what I have, from the county's perspective, we've been in it for a long time, so I don't know if it would count, because we've been in it prior to 2012.
We also renewed the contract, so as soon as we renew that contract.
Yeah, we can look at it and see.
If there's a savings, you should be able to count that, I would think. And I also received a letter from, the Association of Towns that if you had just joined up at NYMER, and that since 2012, that they calculate that there's savings there that can be
apply.
Definitely. Anything that's been done since 2012, there's no question in my mind that you can, as long as you got a savings that you can project reasonably in 17, 18, and 19, you'll be able to include that. The ones that are more difficult that I'm not 100% sure of is, like I said, county's been part of MEGA before 2012. Can we include that or not?
But I would think, once you renew the contract, 'cause I know you have to renew it every 3 years or 2 years, whatever it is. As soon as you renegotiate or get a new price, you know.
Well, certainly, if we can include it, we should. Absolutely.
There's a, program, a energy program, it's a municipal energy program, which maybe, I don't know if you've all got the, emails, but Association of Towns said that qualifies also. And that's a 2-year fixed delivery cost on your electric, which was, right now, I just got the, information, it's 6.9 cents per kilowatt. And we've been paying 18,
Then that's a
17 and a
big
half
savings.
cents, so it's a big savings. So, and there's open enrollment now for all the towns. So,
The only thing I would caution on that one, though, you gotta show savings in 17, 18, and 19.
yeah.
15 and 16 aren't gonna help you.
I'll be gone.
Well, it's good discussion.
I'll be gone.
Good meeting. Anything else before the Shared Services Committee? Do you have a motion to adjourn? Second by Evan.
You know, the one thing you just brought up